Barack Hussein Obama's name occupies an extraordinary place in world history today. He is a man who rose from a background where discrimination based on identity, race, and color had been deeply rooted for centuries, and went on to become the president of the most powerful country in the world, the United States of America. This is not merely the story of a politician. It is the story of an era, a struggle, and a way of thinking. Barack Obama was born on August 4, 1961, in Honolulu, Hawaii. His birth itself carried within it many questions and contradictions. His father, Barack Hussein Obama Sr., was a black African from Kenya who had come to the United States to pursue higher education. His mother, Ann Dunham, was a white American woman from Kansas. At that time, a marriage between a black man and a white woman was considered highly unusual, and in several American states, such marriages were even illegal by law. From an early age, Barack Obama experienced a deep sense of identity crisis. His parents' marriage did not last long. When Barack was still very young, his father returned to Kenya. As a result, Barack was raised mostly under the care of his mother and his maternal grandparents. His grandfather, Stanley Dunham, was a veteran of the Second World War, while his grandmother, Madeline Dunham, worked at a bank. These grandparents played a crucial role in shaping Barack's character, instilling in him discipline, values, and a strong work ethic. A significant turning point in Barack's life came when his mother married an Indonesian man named Lolo Sotoro. After this marriage, Barack Obama spent several years living in Indonesia. During this period, he witnessed poverty up close. He saw simple homes, limited resources, and the daily struggles of ordinary people. In his Indonesian school, he was the only American child, and at times he felt a deep sense of alienation and loneliness. These experiences left a lasting mark on his personality and worldview. After some years, Barack returned to Hawaii, where he entered a relatively better educational environment. Even there, however, life was not entirely easy for him. He was neither fully white nor fully accepted as black within society. This dual identity often left him confused and searching for answers. He constantly tried to understand who he really was and where he truly belonged. In the field of education, Barack Obama was a serious and thoughtful student from the beginning. He attended Punahou School, one of Hawaii's most prestigious schools, known primarily for students from wealthy and influential families. Once again, he felt different from those around him. Yet it was precisely this feeling of being different that strengthened his ability to think deeply, read widely, and prove himself through hard work and intellect. During his high school years, Barack also faced some difficult personal challenges. In his autobiography, he openly admits that as a young man he struggled with confusion, anger, and made some poor choices. However, this phase became a turning point in his life. It was during this time that he learned self-reflection and decided to take his life seriously, choosing a more disciplined and purposeful path. For higher education, he moved to Occidental College in California. There, his political awareness began to take shape. He started engaging in discussions about racism, social injustice, and global politics. Later, he transferred to Columbia University in New York, where he studied political science. Living in a large, diverse city like New York broadened his perspective even further and exposed him to a wide range of ideas, cultures, and social realities. After completing his education, Barack Obama chose a path that surprised many people. Instead of pursuing a comfortable corporate job or a high-paying career, he moved to Chicago to work as a community organizer. His work was simple in description but extremely challenging in practice, organizing poor and neglected communities, listening to their problems, and empowering them to raise their voices for their rights. While working in Chicago, Barack saw a side of America that is rarely shown on television screens. Unemployment, racial discrimination, broken families, and widespread despair became part of his daily experiences. He did not limit himself to giving speeches. Instead, he sat among the people, listened to their stories, and tried to understand their lives from within. This experience later became the foundation of his political philosophy. Gradually, Barack Obama realized that protest alone was not enough to bring lasting change. True transformation required working within the system itself. This realization drew him toward the study of law. He enrolled at Harvard Law School, one of the most prestigious legal institutions in the world. There, he impressed everyone with his intelligence, dedication, and leadership skills, eventually becoming the first Black president of the Harvard Law Review. This achievement was not merely an academic honor. It was a symbolic moment in American history. It signaled that Barack Obama was no longer just a student or an activist, but a figure gaining recognition at the national level. His ideas, his words, and his manner suggested that he was preparing for a much larger journey ahead. After graduating from Harvard, Barack Obama returned to Chicago, where he began practicing law and also worked as a lecturer. He taught young students about the Constitution, civil rights, and the principles of justice, while continuing to learn himself how the American political and legal system truly functioned. At the same time, his personal life was also taking a strong and meaningful shape. In Chicago, he met Michelle Robinson, a talented and determined woman. Their values, visions, and dreams aligned deeply, and she would later become one of the most important sources of strength and support in his life. At this stage, a persistent question echoed in Barack Obama's mind. Should he remain only a lawyer and a teacher, or should he become part of the system that actually makes decisions? This question gradually pulled him toward the door of politics, a world where the challenges were far greater and the stakes far higher. This is where the next chapter of the story begins. A community organizer deciding to step into the political arena, and the history of America moving steadily toward a new and transformative turning point. Barack Obama's entry into politics was not a sudden decision, but the result of years of observation, experience, and inner reflection. Having worked in the streets of Chicago, he had already realized that true power lay with lawmakers and policymakers. If one wanted to genuinely change people's lives, raising a voice from the outside was not enough. One had to become part of the system itself. In the mid-1990s, Barack Obama formally decided to enter politics. At that time, American politics was dominated by wealthy, white, and powerful elites. For a Black, relatively unknown lawyer, this arena was extremely challenging. Yet Obama possessed an extraordinary quality, the ability to connect with people. When he spoke, those listening could feel that he was truly hearing them, understanding their struggles and aspirations. In 1996, Barack Obama ran for the Illinois State Senate. This was his first major political test. Remarkably, he won without the backing of any major political machinery, relying instead on hard work and local support. Though this victory might have seemed like a small step, in reality, it laid the foundation for a long journey that would later transform American history. In the state Senate, Obama established himself as a practical and balanced legislator. He tried to speak beyond race, party, or ideology. His approach was not aggressive. It was rooted in dialogue and understanding. He believed that for America to progress, people must learn to communicate and cooperate despite differences. This mindset distinguished him from many other politicians. During this period, his personal life also strengthened. Michelle Obama was not only his life partner, but also a mirror, keeping him grounded in reality. In the world of politics, where power, ego, and self-interest often dominate, Michelle became a source of balance. Together, they sought to build a family that remained connected to its roots, despite the pressures of public life. Over time, Obama's name began to stand out in Illinois politics. His speeches carried a unique blend of fluency, hope, and vision. He acknowledged the bitterness of the past but spoke about the possibilities of the future. He inspired people to believe that change was possible if they committed themselves to it and worked for it. In 2000, he attempted to step onto the national stage by running for the U.S. Congress. This was a highly competitive race, and he faced defeat. The loss was a significant setback. Many began to think that his political journey might end there. However, Obama treated the defeat not as an ending but as a lesson. He recognized his weaknesses, improved himself, and patiently waited for the next opportunity. After this setback, he re-engaged in state politics, focusing on legislation, particularly in the areas of healthcare, education, and ethical reforms. He understood that credibility and trust are built over time, and that patience was essential. This perseverance would later prove to be one of his greatest assets. The year 2004 marked a decisive turning point in Barack Obama's life. He announced his candidacy for the U.S. Senate from Illinois. At that time, he was still relatively unknown nationally, yet his campaign radiated an extraordinary energy. He believed in speaking directly to people, rather than relying on large rallies. He visited small halls, community centers, and neighborhood gatherings to convey his message personally. That same year, he was given the opportunity to deliver the keynote address at the Democratic National Convention. This moment introduced Barack Obama to the entire nation. His speech focused on unity, hope, and shared values rather than race, division, or fear. He emphasized that America is one nation, regardless of whether its people are black or white, rich or poor. After this speech, the media, the public, and political circles all began to take notice of his name. The speech transformed Barack Obama from a state-level politician into a symbol of national hope. He went on to win the U.S. Senate election with a substantial majority. This victory demonstrated that change was possible in America, or at the very least, that people were ready for it. As a senator, Obama presented himself as a responsible and cautious leader. He understood that every eye was on him. Every step, statement, and vote was scrutinized. He took balanced positions on sensitive issues like foreign policy, war, and civil liberties. He was neither a blind supporter of the system nor its complete opponent. Meanwhile, the United States was heading toward a new set of crises. The Iraq War, economic instability, and growing public disillusionment left many Americans frustrated with traditional politics. They were seeking a leader who would speak not only of power, but also of ethics, integrity, and the future. This was the void that Barack Obama gradually began to fill. Between 2006 and 2007, political observers openly asked whether Barack Obama could be a suitable candidate for the presidency. Even for Obama, the question was not simple. No black person had ever become president in U.S. history. Racism remained a harsh reality, and opponents began to question his name, religion, and background during his campaign. Despite all these pressures, Obama's conviction grew stronger. He believed that with self-confidence and public trust, the impossible could become possible. He knew the journey would not be easy, but he had never chosen an easy path in life. With this vision, determination, and hope, he approached a decision that would not only change his life, but also steer the course of American history in a new direction. From this point, the next phase of his journey would begin, a phase in which a U.S. senator would step into the race for the presidency, facing challenges that were larger and stakes higher than anything he had encountered before. When Barack Obama seriously began contemplating a run for the presidency, he fully understood that this would not merely be a political contest, but a historic test. In American politics, powerful names, strong family backgrounds, and vast financial resources were often decisive. Compared to this, Obama was relatively new, less experienced, and faced racial prejudice. Yet he possessed something extraordinary, which over time would win the hearts of the public, a narrative of hope. In February 2007, he formally announced his candidacy for the presidency. The announcement was made in Springfield, Illinois, the very place where Abraham Lincoln had once delivered historic speeches. This was more than symbolic. It was a message that he considered himself part of America's long democratic tradition. From that moment, his life came entirely under public scrutiny. In the early days, many observers did not take his candidacy seriously. His main competitor, Hillary Clinton, was an experienced and powerful politician, backed by a well-established political machine and substantial financial resources. However, Obama's campaign took an unconventional route. He relied on small donations, volunteers, and young supporters. For the first time on such a scale, social media and the internet were used as central tools in a political campaign. He spoke openly about America's challenges: war, the economy, healthcare, without resorting to blame. His tone was gentle, yet confident, gradually winning the trust and admiration of the public. Throughout the campaign, Obama faced intense criticism and attacks. His citizenship, religion, and patriotism were questioned, and some sought to portray him as un-American. Yet Obama responded not with anger, but with reasoned argument and dignity. This approach presented him as a serious, mature leader. Competition within the Democratic Party intensified. Every state primary became a new test. Sometimes Obama would take the lead, sometimes Hillary Clinton would prevail. The contest was not just about votes, but about vision and leadership. Obama spoke of a new beginning, while his opponent emphasized experience and continuity. Over time, young voters, minorities, and those disillusioned with traditional politics gravitated toward Obama. His campaign evolved into a movement. Thousands of people gathered at rallies, their faces filled with excitement and hope, realizing for the first time that their voices truly mattered. The campaign reached its most delicate phase when racial issues again came to the forefront. Obama had to speak candidly about his identity, his experiences, and the bitter aspects of American history. In a memorable speech, he addressed the issue of race with remarkable balance. He neither denied the past nor expressed despair for the future, but charted a path between the two. Finally, the moment came when the Democratic Party nominated him as its presidential candidate. This decision felt not merely like a party choice, but a historic one. For the first time, a black candidate had been nominated by a major party for the presidency. Yet the real test remained, the contest against Republican nominee John McCain, a war hero and seasoned politician. The general election campaign was more intense than ever. The country was sliding toward an economic crisis. Banks were failing, jobs were disappearing, and fear was widespread. In such a climate, Obama's message gained greater significance. He emphasized that America needed to break away from old thinking and move in a new direction. Through debates, rallies, and intense media attention, Obama maintained a calm and composed demeanor. He made promises, but in a realistic, pragmatic manner. He understood that the public now demanded action, not slogans. His tone was confident, yet grounded in humility. As Election Day approached, America seemed to divide into two distinct camps, one driven by fear and doubt, the other by hope and the desire for change. This was not merely a contest between candidates, but a choice between two different futures. The night of November 2008 became permanently etched in American history. As the votes were counted, it became clear that Barack Obama was moving toward victory. Cities, towns, and homes across the nation watched with bated breath, waiting for a new chapter to begin. When his victory was finally announced, it was not just an electoral success, but a symbolic triumph. The boy who had once wrestled with questions of identity had now become the elected President of the United States. In his victory speech, he reminded the nation that the journey was far from over. The real work was just beginning. From this point onward, Barack Obama's most demanding chapter commenced, one in which the responsibility of turning hope into reality rested squarely on his shoulders, and where every decision would impact not only his nation but the entire world. After Barack Obama became president, the eyes of the world were firmly fixed on the White House. Expectations were high, and the challenges even higher. He assumed office at a time when the United States was grappling with a severe economic crisis, two prolonged wars, and deep internal divisions. The slogans of hope now had to be translated into concrete action, a task that could not be accomplished with a single speech or decision. In January 2009, when Barack Obama took the oath of office, the moment was not only political but historical. Millions gathered in Washington, D.C., while millions more around the world witnessed the scene. It was an extraordinary moment for a country whose history was marred by slavery and racial discrimination. Yet, almost immediately after the inauguration, the weight of reality began to show itself. The most pressing issue was the economy. America was in the midst of a severe recession. Banks were failing, major companies were closing, and millions had lost their jobs. Obama had to act decisively. He approved a substantial economic recovery package aimed at stabilizing the economy, creating jobs, and revitalizing the system. While the decision faced severe criticism, Obama understood that inaction was the greatest risk. Simultaneously, foreign affairs were equally complex. Wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were ongoing, and America's global standing had been affected. Upon taking office, Obama sent a clear message that the United States would prioritize cooperation and diplomacy over unilateral action. He shifted the tone of dialogue with the world while making it clear that national security would not be compromised. Obama's presidential style differed from his predecessors. He believed in less noise, more thought, and consultation. He knew every decision would be scrutinized, especially since he was the first black president. He faced a dual pressure, one as a president and the other as a symbol. Domestically, he prioritized healthcare reform. Millions of Americans lacked access to basic healthcare or insurance. Obama believed that healthcare is a fundamental human right, not merely a privilege. Yet the path to reform was fraught with obstacles. Political opposition was intense, and every step faced resistance. Opponents in Congress vigorously attempted to block his policies. At times, it seemed their opposition was directed more at him personally than at the policies themselves. Yet, Obama did not lose patience. He repeatedly returned to the negotiation table, sought compromises, and refused to abandon his objectives. In foreign policy, he sought to rebuild relationships, addressing the Muslim world, restoring ties with European allies, and focusing attention on Asia were all part of his strategy. He wanted to convey that America understood not just power, but responsibility as well. During this period, he also faced harsh personal criticism and vitriolic attacks. Racist attacks surfaced openly in social media and public discourse. For some, accepting a black president was still difficult. Yet, Obama responded with dignity and quiet strength. The presidency also impacted his family. As First Lady, Michelle Obama carved out her unique role, actively advocating for health, education, and the well-being of children. Together, they demonstrated that even in power, one could remain connected to core values. Over time, tangible results began to emerge. The economy gradually stabilized. Jobs started returning, and America's voice on the global stage became more measured yet effective. Yet criticism never fully disappeared. Every success brought new questions and challenges. The greatest challenge for Obama was keeping the concept of hope alive. The public had attached extraordinary expectations to him, yet not every problem could be solved immediately. He understood that history is shaped not by promises alone, but by decisions and their consequences. This first term was a continuous period of testing, where every step required balance, patience, and foresight. Barack Obama was no longer merely a symbol. He had transformed into a leader whose decisions were impacting the world map, and the story was far from over. Ahead lay another election, further reforms, and decisions that would define his entire tenure. This was the stage where the trajectory of his journey and the foundation of his legacy were being firmly established. By the end of Barack Obama's first presidential term, the United States had somewhat stabilized, yet the political climate had grown more acrid than ever. Disagreements were no longer confined to policy alone. They had become battles over identity, ideology, and power. In this atmosphere, Obama faced another formidable test: re-election. The 2012 presidential election was far from easy. Despite economic recovery, improvements in the average American's life were slow. Unemployment was decreasing, yet full confidence had not been restored. Opponents argued that Obama had inspired hope, but results were limited. This was a moment that once again tested his leadership, patience, and political acumen. In his campaign, Obama focused on facts and continuity rather than aggression. He sought to convince the public that managing an economy teetering on the brink of collapse was not a matter of magic, but of time and careful effort. His message was that with the right path, progress could be achieved even if the pace was gradual. His opponent, Mitt Romney, was a successful businessman who presented economic expertise as his chief strength. In debates, speeches, and media coverage, the contrast between the two was clear. Romney emphasized managerial skill and market-driven solutions, while Obama stressed social balance and the responsibility of the state. Throughout the campaign, Obama highlighted accomplishments such as healthcare reform, the auto industry bailout, and strategies against terrorism that had shielded the nation from greater harm. He also presented Osama bin Laden's elimination as a significant national security success, bolstering public confidence. Ultimately, In November 2012, Barack Obama was re-elected for a second term. This victory demonstrated that although America remained divided, the majority still trusted his vision. After winning a second term, his tone reflected a serious pragmatism. He understood that this was the final window in which he could firmly establish his policies. During his second term, Obama made bolder decisions. He declared that his priority was not electoral politics but accountability to history. Guided by this principle, he treated climate change as a serious national issue, implementing measures to reduce carbon emissions despite facing severe opposition. He also supported same-sex marriage, a major social milestone for the United States. Politically risky, he framed it as a matter of civil rights. Time would later show that this stance became a symbol of social progress in America. In foreign policy, his approach became more cautious yet deeper. He facilitated the nuclear agreement with Iran to prevent a new war, a decision met with strong criticism, but his position was clear. Diplomacy was preferable to war if it could ensure long-term security. Restoring relations with Cuba was another step in this vision, signaling that the world should not remain trapped by old wounds. Though controversial, the move was historically significant. Domestically, racial tensions posed another major challenge. Police violence and the deaths of African American citizens shook the nation. As a black president, Obama felt constrained in addressing the issue. Speaking too harshly could be seen as biased, while remaining silent would appear indifferent. In these moments, Obama maintained balance. He recognized the importance of law enforcement, yet emphasized that peace is impossible without justice. His tone, often emotionally resonant yet controlled, became a hallmark of his leadership style. Over time, it became clear that Obama's true test was not immediate victories, but long-term impact. His decisions might not satisfy everyone, yet they reshaped American political and social discourse. He emerged as a president who believed in creating more effect with less noise. In the final years of his second term, political opposition intensified. Struggles with Congress became routine. Many reforms stalled, and several initiatives remained incomplete. Yet Obama did not view these obstacles as personal failures. He understood that change in a democracy is rarely complete, but direction matters. As the end of his tenure approached, a question lingered. How would history view Barack Obama? As a great reformer, a cautious leader, or a symbolic figure who opened doors but could not walk all paths himself? These questions remained open. One thing, however, was certain. America would not be the same after Obama. His presence, his voice, and his decisions had reshaped the tone of politics. And then came the moment to prepare for leaving office. The lights of the White House were dimming, yet his impact, decisions, and story were far from over. The real question now was, who would Barack Obama be after the presidency, and what legacy would he leave for future generations? At the conclusion of Barack Obama's presidency, the United States stood at a new crossroads. After 8 years in office, he was leaving the White House. Yet his name, character, and decisions had become an indelible part of American history. Leaving power is never easy for any leader, especially for one burdened with extraordinary expectations. In January 2017, Barack Obama stepped down with quiet dignity. In that moment, there was neither the pride of victory nor the bitterness of defeat, but a profound seriousness. In his farewell address, he emphasized that democracy is not a static entity, but a continuous struggle in which every generation must play its part. He reminded the public that change does not come from a single individual, but from collective consciousness. After leaving office, Obama did not retreat into obscurity. Instead, he remained active in a different capacity. Staying away from direct politics, he focused on social and intellectual engagement. His attention turned to nurturing young leadership, promoting education, and advancing democratic values. He understood that true power lies in preparing future generations. Together with Michelle Obama, he established the Obama Foundation, dedicated to fostering leadership, civic awareness, and social justice worldwide. The foundation was not aligned with any political party, but reflected a philosophy rooted in dialogue, tolerance, and hope. Through this platform, Obama encouraged young people to engage with the system constructively, rather than becoming disillusioned by it. He also documented his life story in writing. His books not only narrated his personal journey, but also unveiled the inner workings of American politics. These works were free from self-praise or complaints, offering thoughtful analysis that compelled readers to reflect. He openly acknowledged both his successes and failures. Internationally, Obama's voice continued to resonate. He spoke at global forums about democracy, climate change, and human rights. Though no longer holding official power, his influence persisted. In many countries, he was regarded as a leader who spoke principles rather than raw power. Debate over his domestic legacy continued. Some viewed him as an overly cautious president, while others saw him as a leader who prioritized reason and balance during turbulent times. Critics noted he could have been bolder in certain areas. Yet it was also acknowledged that he managed crises without triggering major disasters. Obama's racial significance extended beyond his tenure. His presidency became a symbol of hope for millions who felt marginalized by the system. He demonstrated that the walls of identity in America are not insurmountable. While racism did not vanish, the narrative opposing it was strengthened. A defining feature of his personality was his tone. In a political landscape often marked by loud voices and harsh language, he favored calm, logic, and decorum. This approach became even more pronounced in the years that followed, as politics grew increasingly divided and confrontational. Over time, historians will continue to evaluate his decisions from multiple perspectives. Some policies may change, others may endure, but the impact of his presence cannot be erased. He will be remembered as a president who, even at the height of power, remained human, and who sought to instill the same awareness in the public. Barack Obama's story is, in essence, a reflection of America's story, a nation full of contradictions, yet brimming with possibilities. A society that repeatedly questions itself, falls, recovers, and strives forward. Obama was neither the beginning nor the end of this journey, but a pivotal milestone. This documentary is not intended to merely praise or criticize one individual, but to understand the process through which history is made. Barack Obama was human, with flaws and virtues. Yet he demonstrated that with intention, knowledge, and perseverance, the impossible can be achieved. Ultimately, it would not be wrong to say that Barack Obama was not just the President of the United States. He was an idea that reminds us that hope never truly disappears, and change always knocks, in one form or another, at the door.